Welcome and good evening from UMS. I'm Mark Jacobson, the Senior Programming Manager, and thank you so much for joining us on Facebook and YouTube for our second happy hour listening party this evening, featuring Tarek Yamani and the Spektral Quartet. These artists are opening up their creative process as they begin their UMS Digital Artist Residency. Together, exploring the junctures between Western classical music, jazz and improvisation, and traditional music from the Arab world. Last night, we had the opportunity to hear Spektral Quartet present the many faces of the string quartet. And tonight, we have the opportunity to listen to Tarek share musical selections that have influenced him and shaped the foundation of his artistry. It's been a real pleasure to get to know the Spektral Quartet and Tarek over the last few years. UMS has had a relationship with Doyle Armbrust as a contributor to our program notes series, and working with Tarek Yamani in Dearborn in March, right before the present pandemic struck. These are artists that I'm just so thrilled are collaborating in such a significant and meaningful way. Before we begin, I'd like to thank our generous digital residency supporters, UMS Sustaining Directors, and Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan. At any time, use the chat function to join the conversation and to ask any questions to our artists. So, without further ado, let's get this listening party started and bring in our guests, Tarek Yamani and the Spektral Quartet.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello.
Mark, I was just about to give you a +1 for your Into the Spider-Verse poster, but you left so quickly.
We're back.
Yeah, I'm back. Welcome, everybody. I was wondering why nobody laughed at my very good joke in the beginning. Which was like a 1 millisecond. So welcome everybody to this. My name is Tarek Yamani. I've actually been pronouncing my name wrong for the past 20 years. It's actually Tarek Yamani, but let's go with Tarek Yamani. I actually really like how Mark says it.
Tarek.
Mark says it so different than any other American. Yeah. So and it's Yemeni, not Yamani, but even in the Arab world they call me Yamani. But anyway, that's another story. So I'm I'm born and raised in Beirut, I play the piano and I compose, and I'm so looking forward to kind of help you change your tunings in some way. So, a disclaimer: if you have a gig tonight, don't play a gig tonight because you don't want to be messing up your tunings. So we're gonna be. I feel like I would like to take you over some nice trip around the Arab world, starting from Yemen, going all the way to Algeria. And the main aim from this selection, which was very, very hard to do, was to kind of explore more the quarter tone, because in Arabic music, the quarter tone is a very particular aspect of it. It's not just the microtone that is played in a passing way. It's more like an emphasized kind of dimension, where also this dimension, this particular range is flexible, but it's within the quarter kind of universe. And there's also a huge thing about ornamentation, which makes this music very particular how to. It's kind of like the Indian raga. I mean, it's not as I would say detailed as the Indian raga. Like the raga usually is like every raga has a time where to play it, sunset or sunrise or wherever, and also like the way up has different notes than the way down. The ornamentations are different, and it's so detailed and so rich. Every name, it's not just a scale with a particular set of notes. And Arabic music, it's kind of the same, but it's not that much crazy. I don't know what other word to use. So yeah, we're gonna explore that, and I tried to focus a little bit about on the string section aspect of it, since that's our theme also, how strings are played, because strings, there's no harmony really in Arabic music, at least traditionally. So the music is always played in unison. The whole orchestra plays kind of the same thing in octaves and unisons. But it functions as like one kind of instrument, one sound, which there's a lot of call and response, and there's a lot of just ornamentation. They come in at some point and go up, and it's really nice to. I just so curious to see how you would react to that and how you would feel about it from your perspective. So should we start?
Yeah,
think?
let's do it.
So yeah.
I was just going to introduce the quartet before we get started.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So I'm Clara Lyon. I play violin. Gonna throw it to Maeve.
I'm Maeve. I also play violin.
I'm Russ. I play the cello. And I'm Doyle, and I play the viola.
And we are Spektral Quartet. We're based in Chicago, and we are working on getting rid of our Midwestern accents so we can properly pronounce Tarek's name. Which I know I'm not.
Well, we should say too that like the purpose of this, right, is that this is what we do when we collaborate with somebody. Yeah, like we share stuff back and forth, especially with somebody from a different discipline.
Yeah,
getting rid of our accents and our tuning systems.
Yeah, I should get rid of my accent too. That's hard. So, and yeah, I have to say that Spektral Quartet is an incredible. I mean, yesterday what we heard was just mind blowing. Your interpretation of stuff. So it's like we're gonna rock on. So we're gonna start with a song from Yemen by a singer called Abu Bakr Salim, very particular kind of singer. It's actually very unique in the whole Arab world, the way he sings, and very particular voice. And I chose the song particularly because it really strikes a chord in terms of like the scale, which is very common in the Gulf area. I mean, it's a universal Arabic scale. It's called Hijaz, but it has the way they play it in Yemen has a very certain kind of like tuning in terms in ways that sounds so desert to me, and it has something I think that touches me and probably related to where I come from originally. And actually, my last name means from Yemen, so maybe it's a psychological thing, or maybe it's real. I don't know. So yeah, let's hear it.
وشفت صوب باقي الكاسات غلت كاسات غلت أطلب يا بهادي بكاسين وحدوا للقرب مجلس القرب مجلس واستجير الله من البيت
That was awesome.
This song kills me. So what does it do to you?
Makes me worried about playing a little too sharp or a little too flat on those keys. I can't quite, Yeah, right.
Unison.
Right. So much unison, overdose. Yeah. Any comments?
I'm curious, what's the text?
Oh, the text is very, very beautiful. It's so hard, I mean, to do it justice in English. And it's also in Yemeni colloquial Arabic of the 15th century. It's written by like an Islamic saint, let's say. We call them like Sayyid. And it talks about just, it's just describes a kind of lover with his partner, just wanting to extend the night as much as possible. And so they like go on with all these kind of like they tell the rooster, you call it, the male chicken, to like shut up, and they call the person who pours the wine not to go pray the morning prayer, which is pretty like hardcore for that time and for an Islamic Sayyid to write like that. But at that time it was pretty normal. So yeah.
Well, it's really cool. I think we might have lost Clara there for a second. Hopefully she'll come back to us. I was curious, like, how talk about the meter in this, like, it's like in a 7. Is that very common? Is meter like specific to a certain style, or is it a
Yeah, it's not common. I mean, in the Levant music, so there's a big difference between the Arabian Gulf music and the Levant and then North Africa. It's different aesthetics, and in the Arabian Gulf, like you can find 7s different than the Levant. The Levant, the 7 is not played like that as a percussive. It's more like a whole phrase that you don't really feel the beat. In this case, it's more like in a jazz way. Let's say it's more like an African way, but it's not really particular. So it's generally speaking, and the scale here. So it's the Hijaz scale, and then it goes on the bridge or the second part to a scale was called Bayat, and that scale is probably the oldest Arabic scale, and it has the 2nd and the 6th quarter. And it alternates between that and the Hijaz, which the Hijaz has the 2nd flatted and the major 3rd. So yeah, these two is a very common kind of alteration between these two scales. Yeah. So if you have nothing else to add, maybe we could go on to another. It's going to be a lot of Bayat scale actually. And it's going to be interesting to just hear how the scale is so different in so many different regions. So now we're going to hear a muwashah, which is a old Arabic form that's as old as Andalusia, when Arabs were in Andalusia in the 800s. And this form is a kind of like a classical Arabic form with very beautiful poetry. And usually they would fill in with the words with like aman, just like vocalise. And this is a Lebanese group that is called Ensemble Morkos, and they're like a family for the family name of Morkos. And this muwashah is called Rashik al-Qad, and it's on the maqam of Bayat, but it's all Bayat, and I think it's in the meter of 10/8, and it's a particular way of 10/8. It's like 3/2 plus 2/3. So we can hear it, and then we can talk about it.
القاد خان عهودي يا ليل رشيق القاد خان عهودي وقد آن كرودي يا ليل أسرني فتني ملكني تركني يا ليل هائم بالصد يا نوى البعد أمان أمان يا لالي وبعده عني أفتن وجودي يا ليل وبعده عني أفتن وجودي والقلب في وجدي يا ليل سباني رماني ضناني شجاني يا ليل بقاني خده شعري الجعدي أمان أمان يا لالي.
If you had an Arabic crowd now, they all would have said Allah at the end. You know, they would all stand. But now we're gonna stay.
I felt so like this made me feel so at home because my grocery store here in Skokie, Illinois plays Andalusian music nonstop. And it's actually one of the reasons that I go to that grocery store, because the music is so good. It's like, when has anyone ever said the grocery store music is good? Now, I don't say that to diminish what we just listened to. I'm just making that connection.
Right.
I don't know. Her voice is just so incredibly seductive.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I guess I have a question for you, which is all right. So there's maybe an oud in there, and the strings, the rabab,
the kanun,
ghosting her. Oh, kanun. Okay.
Yeah.
Like
and also there's a violin. I think there was a violin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting to me because I feel like music that's at least somewhat related to what we just listened to. Like, I feel like I'm accustomed to hearing a really overbearing string sound, or a really huge kind of big string sound, and like I really love the way that was sort of like ghosting her voice, you know, as you're going through the music. It was gorgeous.
Right.
Yeah, the unison stuff, it's so interesting because I feel like just thinking about music that I've played or we've played recently that is microtonal, so much of the time, like the altered pitch it's like placed there to be in contrast to something else. It's contextualized to sound a certain way in relief, and so when everything's in unison, it really makes what I hear as the altered pitches, it makes them sound so different and so much more like decisive, because they're not intended to be outliers from a system. It's like having all of the instruments and the voice like together playing those pitches. It really like makes me think of them not as altered pitches, but as just pitches, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's the thing. They're not thought of as something different. I mean, they are part of the system. They are the system.
Yeah.
That's why there's absolutely no problem everybody playing the same. It's like there's no problem everybody playing C, right? Mm-hmm. It's like we can all play C together. It's fine. Most of the time.
A good day.
So, like, it's not just like the pitches of it. So interesting about the unison. It's like the way that it's so clear everyone's playing with like the exact same inflection as well. That makes like that unison sound like so strong, and I think helps bring that out as well. It's very impressive.
Yeah, that's really a big part of it. Yeah, it's this ornamentation, let's call it, or whatever. Yeah, the way, and which is so different from place to another. But like every culture has their way, and it just works, and exactly it amplifies. It's like it's a texture game, really. it's you forget about harmony, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
you don't even need it. Like if there was one harmony in even one place, it's gonna put you off. Yeah.
It's interesting.
Let me
Yeah.
let me ask you a quick question. So one of the things that's challenging sometimes of change, like, you know, we've talked a bit about some music to listen to, and like I find that when I go chasing things down, it's actually very difficult to find information, at least in English, about some of these things. And
Right.
when I was trying to look this track up or this group up, the singer's name was listed as Bernadette. Is that
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Is that like a sort of like Americanization or Anglicization of
No. So
actual
in
name?
Lebanon, no, because Lebanon, like it's very common to have kind of like this is more French. So we have a lot of French names. So Lebanese Christians, it's very common. You know, you find very kind of like French names. And I understand some people would find it very strange. Like why would the Lebanese be called Pierre? You know, but it's like it's as common as being called John. You know, in the States. You know. So, but that's particularly Lebanon, and you know, in that whole region. So, cool. All right. So I think we go to the next one, which is another bayat, and intentionally, I'm kind of like going through the scale, but seeing how much you can make out of that sound. Even though here, so this is a Turkish kanun player and an incredibly virtuosic kanun player. The whole band, they're unbelievable, named Koksal Baktagir. And so Turkish quarter tone is a little bit sharper than the all other kind of traditions of the Arab world. And that's why I wanted to kind of like show you how it could just have this different sensation. And the way they approach, and it's like I'm not sure if that's a Sameh actually. I forgot if it was 10/8. They also approach the whole like classical Arabic music, let's say, in a different way. There's different sensibility to composition. So this is a track called Husseini Saz Eseri.
So good. So good. I love it.
has this Baroque feel. I love how they start. It's like, I think it's like even kind of like viola di gamba or something, and that the tunings are the tuning is like a little bit lower or so. I don't know. It sounds so Baroque-ish. Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking, like, especially at the end, like, I was thinking about a Baroque ensemble too, and like the kind of ornamentation, and it's so interesting, like the ways in which it's similar and not. Like, sometimes I feel like when I listen to, Baroque music, Western music, it's like sometimes like the most sort of ornamented flourishes, they're either really like kind of decorating like one moment or one note, or they're just a bridge from point A to point B. And what's so crazy, I feel like there's like another dimension in some of these ornamentations where it's like it's not so clear that it's just taking you from one place to the next. It's like it's its own kind of point of interest, and
Right.
like it becomes a feature rather than just adding to the structure.
Yeah, definitely. And the Turkish are particularly crazy about technique, and you can hear like the sound. It's so clear. The articulation is, you can like touch it. It's just so clear. And what else? What did I want to say? Yeah, and the time, in terms of time. So this was in 9, and so it's not a Samez. The one we heard before was in 10. And how also like is kind of like a Turkish kind of like characteristic is that they play a lot they compose over the bar line. They don't really follow the percussive beats. So sometimes it's not sure where we are in the meter, because there's a lot of over the bar line kind of composition. And it's particularly true in Sama'is, which are, if we hear them in the Levant, we really hear like tum 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 1 2 3 4 5, but in Turkish it's like more, as it goes over the bar line where we lose the count. Yeah.
Funny for me, like there's parts of it that actually had like an Appalachian feel to me. Like I had this folky feel to it that felt so cool, and like the I don't know too, like a separate point from that, but like just the texture of the sound is so like, it's so inviting. Like I don't even apart from the technical or the theoretical sort of things we're talking about, like just the sound quality is so nice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the texture is beautiful. So yeah, that was Göksel Baktagir. All right, let's go to Algeria now then. A whole other vibe. So the next one is actually a singer that I've discovered in my teens, and I don't know how I came across this woman called Houria Aishi from northeastern Algeria, which is they're Amazigh. They're called sometimes Berber and Shawi people, but I think it's considered kind of pejorative now to use these words, and Amazigh is a proper way to call this ethnic group, and they have this very particular music, and she sings music that is inspired by the mountains which the town inhabits. It's, I think, called the Osses mountain or something. I'm not sure how you pronounce it in English. And it's also religious. It has a religious kind of texts. So it is with percussion, voice, and Algerian flute, and they're singing a scale which it's a scale that is, let's say, the third mode of the kind of Arabic scale, the major Arabic scale, which is Rast, which has the third and the seventh quarter. So the third mode would be, we start with a quarter tone. So if we're in C, then it would be E half flat, and then we make a Hijaz, which is a half step and a minor third from the third. So it would be E half flat, F, G, G sharp, B, C, D, E. And this is Vent de la Montagne, which means it's French for wind of the mountain.
Next track.
We went to the next one.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Like just the spirit coming through. like you know, you feel the ecstasy, that ecstatic sort of energy
That
coming
big
through
like
is
drop
amazing.
happened right when we all came back on screen, and we were all just like,
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I have no idea what it's about. I don't have the cultural context, but like you can feel it, you know. It's so great.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
It makes me sad that I'll never ever do anything that cool in my entire life.
Yes, it's you know, it's kind of like resembles this kind of exactly, it's like ecstasy thing, or like the trance that you get from just percussion and voice, which is very common in South America, and in it's an African tradition, you know, the whole kind of like what do you call it, like spirit invoking, or you know getting the gods to do something, or so or if somebody's inhabited by demon, so they do this whole celebration. So it has this very religious context. And with my research that I've done with the Arabian Peninsula percussion, because they have this same kind of like African slavery that happened to the other side, and same, they brought all their instruments, but then this tradition merged there with something completely different and brought something else. And what's really interesting is that in Africa, you don't find percussion held up. It's all kind of like, you know, but in Arabic music, all the percussion is frames and held like this, and it's all up. And it's so interesting, like how that this change that happened. So like here, what we're hearing is all frames being slapped, you know, and held with one hand. I mean, there was also some kind of like something with sticks, but yeah, but it's all kind of coming the same thing. And yeah, now we're in Algeria, so we have this African 6/8 feeling, and then the whole this energy of the, and this is kind of like a Arabic traditional thing of, it's a celebratory kind of sound which women make for like celebratory occasions. I can do it, but yeah.
Do you take, I'm curious, like, you know, thinking about this track, but also some of the other things that we've heard so far, like, how does this, I mean, this is a very broad question, so I'm not sure how you answer it, but like, how do you bring this into your own practice? Like, how are you think about this music in relation to the kind of music you make?
Well, that's the thing, you know, the kind of advantage of being from this tradition, you don't really have to think about it. I actually didn't think about it until very recently, where I started to think more scholarly about what is this thing, which has always been kind of like a second nature to me. But I never like studied this music. I only listened to it, and it was part of my entourage, let's say. But I was so focused on learning jazz and all this kind of things. And then recently I started to look into it. But I look into it in a completely different way. I don't look into it from the traditional point of view. I look at it more like from a scientific point of view, because the traditional thing is already kind of built in somehow.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What's next? Or sorry,
All right.
want to say, Doyle, do you want to?
Tarek, I was just going to ask, like, when you were growing up, like, what music did you seek out? You know, when you were like a teenager, for instance, like, were you seeking out any traditional music, or was it
not at all?
Entirely?
Yeah, I mean, I have, my background is kind of super versatile. I've listened to like all kinds of rock. I mean, as a teenager, I was really listening to heavy metal and up to the deathest of death metal. And I started out with Pink Floyd actually as a kid. So that range. And then I was also there was a period where I was very, very interested in, I dropped all this and I went into like like music around the world. So I was listening to like shakuhachi music from Japan, gamelan from Indonesia, throat singing from Tibet, very kind of like, you know, very seeking out very strange or very unfamiliar music. And until I discovered jazz, basically, I was maybe around 19 or 20. And that's when I just focused on that, and I stopped listening to almost nothing else from that moment on. So yeah.
I think this is why we're friends.
Yeah, you know, there are no coincidences in life. Everything is meant to be. So everything. I think everything is meant to be. Yeah. The what do you call it? The interconnectivity of the universe. Sometimes it's hard to measure. I mean, it's impossible to measure because it's so complex, but it doesn't mean it's not there. So, all right, we're gonna go to another kind of so something about Horia Aisha that we just listened is the way she's singing. There's something very kind of rural in the voice. It's a little bit aggressive. It's kind of sharp, harsh, let's say. And the next track is from Egypt, and it's a very religious. It's a religious ceremony of the usually the anniversary of the Prophet Muhammad, and there's his story, his life story, which is very very long, and they I think they sing it for days, and it's a very big event where they just keep singing the whole story, you know. And so the singer called Dina Al-Wididi was also a very dear friend. She was, I think, the first to take this part of it and make it into a modern kind of with her band, and she usually doesn't sing like that. She sings in a kind of different voice, but in this she uses more like this kind of rural kind of let's say tribal, or I don't know what word to use, kind of voice. And so yeah, we can listen to it and then we can talk about it.
قد خاب عبد لا يصلي على النبي نبي عربي ما لي شفيع سواه نبي الهدى لولاه ما نعرف الهدى قطع العدا طه بحد قناه يا ليل يا ليل يا ليل يا عين يا ليل يا ليل يا ليل يا عين يا ليل يا عيني على أشكو لمن رفع السماء بلا عمد إلهي تعالى مقتدر في علاه على ما جرى لي يا ويح قلبي لما جرى صابر على حكم الكريم مولاي يا ليل يا ليل يا ليل يا عين يا ليل يا ليل يا ليل يا عين يا ليل يا عيني على أستغفر الله العظيم من الخطأ إلهي تعالى واحد لا سواه
That was great. It's so interesting to hear that after all of the other tracks that you shared with us, and to hear harmony
Yeah. Oh
again.
yeah, right.
You know, for the first time. For the first time in this hour, it made me realize that everything previously, I feel like my brain was listening to percussion as if it was the harmony. You know, like I feel like percussion until this track was like occupying that space in my brain that normally like harmony lives. And like to hear this track, it was just I I don't know, like my brain started organizing it differently. It was like just interesting to have that experience after everything else.
Interesting.
How do you think that she went about sort of like orchestrating this track?
I'm not sure. It's not so uncommon to like play kind of like guitar chords, let's say. So basically, the melody is very very simple, and a lot of some of the the Algerian singer and this one, the melody basically is 4 notes. It's just 1, 2, 3, 5, but there's a lot of kind of ornamentation and trills. But it's very very simple, and that's kind of another aspect of traditional music where sometimes the whole song would be only on the first 4 notes, and it's amazing how much music you can make out of just these 4 notes. So to kind of put some harmony to it is not, you know, it's easy to kind of make this effect that is that something changed after a while. You know, you just move the bass a minor third down or something, and it's like, whoa, another world. After so much of like these 4 chords, you know. But here is very percussion heavy, and this percussion is very Egyptian. So this sounds very Egyptian kind of festival, and for them, I mean, they call it festival mahragan, which is for them is really street music, and they live in this, and they are like street people. You know, they're always out, you know, in the hoods and listening to music and playing music and singing. So there's a lot of fiesta going on.
What do you think is kind of indicative of that style of percussion? Like what should we be listening for if we were to listen to it again?
Yeah, well, for example, it's not polyrhythmic. So that's a very interesting aspect of in general Levantine music, is that it's not polyrhythmic. It's very it's very on the beat, doom doom ta doom, just like 1 2 3 4 1, you know, and it's about the textures of the percussion, and of course, like there are different roles of every percussion, but it's very very kind of organized in a non-polyrhythmic way. There's no 3 inside 2, you know, unlike Arabian Gulf music or African music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
well, I just love those bass slides. Those, like, I mean, that was just, it's so satisfying to hear that. And then like you were saying, Clara, like the harmony, like having that constant bass, like really then sort of like puts you really hear those quarter tones sort of, and to my ear anyway, like you hear the rub, you know, and it's super satisfying.
So that's another Bayat scale. So now we've heard maybe 4 different versions of Bayat scale, and it just sounds like universes apart. I don't know how if it feels the same for you, but it does feel like that for me. Yeah. Should we go on?
Sure.
Okay, I had to slip something of mine in here because I have another Bayat thing. But it's like, but
Cool.
here I'm trying. I mean, the way I dealt with quarter tones, which was very recent. The first time I start opening up to this world was actually just 3 years ago. Officially, I mean, I've started before, but it took me a long time because I was so much working out the different where to tune the quarter tone in between the notes. So in ways, so if I play a chord, it sounds the best possible, the most harmonious possible. So I experimented a lot with where to put the quarter tone. I also experimented a lot with voicing. So I discovered that different voicings, sometimes you would play like, let's say A minor 7 chord, a different inversion would sound much better than another. So, but then it's so hard to actually like remember this, you know, because I'm used to just changing things around on the spot. So I had to like, okay, this chord, I have to play this inversion always, only. And so anyway, the result and timbre. I realized that timbre plays a big role in terms of like how dissonant versus non-dissonant the harmony and quarter tones sound like.
Yeah, we know that for sure.
Yeah, timbre is so important.
Totally.
And so yeah, the result of this, my first kind of like something that I put out there with this kind of the result of this research, the very first preliminary research was this album called Peninsular, and now I'm gonna play you a track called Halaland, which is based on a Bayat scale, but here I'm moving harmonies and I'm experimenting with like kind of jazz voicings, and so yeah, let's see what you think.
Also, this track is unbelievable.
And the rhythm, by the way, is thank you, Doyle, by the way. And the rhythm is a Yemeni rhythm called Khaliji Rumba. Khalij is the region, so it's called Khaliji Rumba. It doesn't have nothing to do with the rumba, but that's what they call it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So good.
So good.
Somebody give Tarek like $1 billion to put that in their movie as the theme song, because my god,
Yeah.
like a walking down the
It's so
Thank
street,
you.
crazy,
a walking
like-
down the street montage with that behind it would just slay.
Thank you so much.
So interesting, like after hearing like so much music earlier tonight that is utilizing microtones, but it's instruments or voices that are like someone is still placing it in that place and there's like natural tuning happening, and then to hear like a sound that's so familiar but
Mhm.
electronic, to hear like an electric piano altered, it's like such a crazy way to, it's such a satisfying way to hear those notes, because it's a different type of, it's like it's satisfying, not in like, oh, that person really nailed that tuning, which to me sounds so hard to get, but it's like I'm used to that sound as being like absolute electronic, and to hear it altered that way, it's like
Yeah,
it's just yeah.
I like that description in this way, like satisfying. I like that's how you find it. It's an unusual. Yeah, no, I believe I totally get you. Yeah, that's
That
great.
is super satisfying. And so this is a track of yours that I've listened to quite a bit, actually. And the other night, I found on your YouTube channel a video, like live video of you and your band playing this in studio.
Mhm.
And it was so interesting to see the video after listening to the track, because like even knowing that you're playing microtonal keyboards a lot, I just assumed that there were like more instruments on the track. Like I thought that I heard, sometimes like I wasn't even sure, like maybe like some kind of electric guitar sound sometimes, or
Oh, okay.
so it was really cool to see like how stripped down the band was to make this track, and watch the videos, like, yeah, really enlightening.
Oh, wow.
And just to see, how many sounds were really coming from the keyboard was super cool.
Yeah, I think it's this. Yeah, because it's also a little bit distorted, the sound, and it's these like kind of crunchy chords make it sound maybe bigger than it is. Yeah, yeah, it was so interesting to actually the thing that I was playing piano and keyboards at the same time. It was the first time, like I did not practice it, so I was in the studio and I'm like, let me turn to the piano. That was like the first take. I don't know how I got this crazy idea. So I went to the piano and I started the solo on the piano. And then I'm like, okay, let me put my left hand on the keyboard. And I started playing together. I'm like, okay, am I gonna mess it up? I don't know. Let me keep going. And then I start playing Unison, and then so the piano is not is normal tuning and the keyboard is not. So I then started playing these like two clashed notes together, and then I switched to
It's super cool.
but it was all like completely unprepared. Yeah.
That's so cool. I love it.
Thank you. Wow. So I think we need to close.
It needs to be said that everybody right now should go and check out that album of Tarek's. It's brilliant.
Thank you. And everybody should go and check out your newly released album. What is it called?
That one's called Experiments in Living.
Experiments in Living. Beautiful artwork with beautiful like tarot cards, kind of like magic. So if you're interested, what is this? So go check out what they're doing with the tarot cards.
And Tarek's album is called Peninsular, and also your piece for us better be that good.
Okay, it's gonna be better, man. It's gonna be better.
That's cool.
Well, so should we listen to the last one and then we say goodbye? All right. So the last one is actually an amazing musician from Kuwait, young, also a friend, but we've never met, but we know each other virtually. And this track is I feel like it's a best track to finish with, because it's so heavy in tradition and with like the sound of the Arabic maqam, but at the same time there's like this beautiful string arrangements and his voice and the way he's singing, and he has very special guitar, quarter tone guitar that sounds I think double strings. It sounds like kind of like the double string steel guitar or something. I don't know what it is. And I think it sounds really good. His name is Yusuf Yassin. He's from Kuwait, and this track is called Latin Sani. Ooh,
Oh, that track is so deep.
so deep.
Oh god.
Exactly. That's the word. So rich. Yeah.
It's amazing because like the voice could only exist now. It, to my mind anyway. It's like it's so obviously of this moment. Like even like I hear it especially like when he multi-tracks his voice on top of itself to like create a vocal cord. Like that's something like of now. And then like just the way that's juxtaposed with the tunings underneath, like it's so I just love that. It's like it's like the multiculturalism sort of like all
Right.
encapsulated in one track.
Exactly. And that's why I think like this guy is like onto something really huge, because there's nothing like that really. I think such a good kind of perfect fusion. And also I think there's some Indian influence. Like the strings have also some Indian feeling to them, and the phrasing. So it's like combined also with that, and the harmony, doing harmonic with quarter tones with the strings and the voice and this guitar. Yeah, I think it's some new stuff. It's very
I
fresh.
love that he's like letting those streams sort of like exist on their own too. It's kind of like we were talking about last night of it's not sort of taking one sound world or discipline and just putting it into another. It's sort of letting them coexist. And
Right.
there's, like you say, more than two there. And it's just, it's extraordinary.
Yeah.
I went down a rabbit hole on this guy. Like when you told us that you're playing his music, like this is the one where I just kept chasing and
okay.
Like, and it's interesting because he's got tunes that sound like modern pop tunes, you know, and they're in standard tuning. And then what was the one I heard, like Neutrino Hum was this track that I checked out by him that was like, oh man, yeah. So this is like you've put me onto somebody that I'm definitely a fan of now.
Ah, very happy to hear. Yeah, and I think he will be happy to hear. I hope he's watching now. I don't know.
It makes me, Tarek, if you don't mind, like, it makes me want to ask a question that's like either insightful or super ignorant, but like even the way that we've been talking about tuning tonight, like unusual tuning in relation to what, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, like we're talking about these things as though equal tempered piano tuning is the norm. But
Right.
you know, the string quartet came around in the 1700s, and I feel like everybody in the Arab world is that's really cute. You know, some of this music comes from the 6th century.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah,
like
exactly.
it's I don't know, it's just interesting that we even talk about it kind of without thinking, you know, as though it's something out of the ordinary, and yet like says who.
Right. Yes, but that's a really long topic, and it involves kind of like the kind of like the influence of Western classical music that kind of like the same as let's say like white supremacy. You know,
Mhm.
it's like when that came, it became the norm, just like so many other things, including grace and also the map of the world, right? Like we've all our lives we've been learning the wrong map with the wrong sizes. You know, they made Africa so small,
Mhm.
and there are and it's part of the same thing. So there was this propaganda that classical, you know, Western classical music, the music of these guys, you know, Beethoven and Mozart, is the most supreme, and everything else is just tribal and barbaric and whatever.
Mhm.
And yeah, and it took a long time until like we started to wake up to that. It's like, wait a second, no, this is not the greatest music. I mean, there's other great music out there, you know. But some people actually believe it because that's what we've been raised on learning, and if the whole world is brainwashed with this stuff. I mean, that's at least that's kind of like my point of view
Yeah.
to why this. And the same with tuning. So the tuning was invented in the 1700s, and it became like the whole world had to adjust. And it's so new, and it's so actually wrong in a way. It's just so unnatural, right? Like the well-tempered scale is the most unnatural scale ever, but we're stuck in it now. It's like you can't even.
Mhm.
It's like, why do I have to struggle to like compose music on my instrument? I can't to compose music with different tunings. I'm stuck, you know. I have to find ways. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's in a nutshell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's why I'm so excited about this project. Is like it's a chance for us to open up and to stretch, you know, our skills, but also just our minds and our the way we think about music. And yeah, it's
Yep.
super
and luckily
exciting.
none of our instruments have frets, so just do
It's
your
so
work.
Yeah.
good. Yeah, you're so lucky. Easy.
I'm great at playing things out of tune.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
this was
it's
amazing,
gonna
Tarek. Thank you for
Yeah.
taking us. Like
All right.
you took us a long distance tonight.
Thank you
Yeah,
for
that was very
joining and
good.
for accepting. It means a lot, really.
Yeah, super fun.
Hey, Mark.
So sparks are flying right now, and I really don't want to cut off the conversation. There's nothing stuck about this conversation and the energy right now. It's so wonderful to participate as a fly on the wall to the very beginnings of this artistic collaboration, and I can't wait to see the fruits of your work together as the year unfolds. So we are just about out of time. I'm so thankful again for the conversation, and Turek, thank you for sharing all of this unbelievable, special, incredible music. And it's so new to many of our ears, and we're deeply we have a lot of gratitude for the work that you've done to prepare this tonight. Thank you. I would like to let everybody know that you can learn more about our digital artist residencies and our upcoming digital presentations at ums.org, including next Friday night's digital presentation and premiere of Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra's Septet with Wynton Marsalis. So please check that out on Friday, November 27. And we look forward to bringing the 5 of you together again very soon, and can't wait to see how our digital artist residency work continues. Thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you for making
Thanks,
this
Mark.
work, Mark.
Thank you, everyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good
Good
night,
night,
everyone.
everybody.
Ciao, everybody.
Bye.